Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the best movie I've seen that's released in the past few years, besides Across the Spiders, because I've seen that between writing and recording the script. But as the second movie of a Shrek spin-off with great reactions from audience and critics alike, one has to ask, is this movie better than Shrek 2, or is this just another case of people overhyping stuff like with No Way Home? Sup everyone, I saw Puss in Boots 2 Last Wish, or Puss in Boots 2, in theaters before I left them for good. And even though the theater I went to was less than an ideal one, that didn't take away from the fact that this movie was genuinely amazing. I know I'm pretty late for the Puss in Boots hype train, but hey, what can I say? I do not like to be a part of the crowd. The movie is fantastic in every sense of the word, so much so that I had to see it twice, viewing it in 4K the second time around. Having a more quiet space, I enjoyed it only more upon second viewing. I wanted to make a whole review out of it because if any movie deserves it, it's this one. But I'm sure there are already a lot of videos that do that. Also, reviewing would only be necessary for people who haven't seen the movie. And since I'm gonna assume all of you watching this have, I'm gonna put a spoiler warning right here. Before doing anything else, I want to talk about the first Puss in Boots movie, or rather its existence. Because while it is much less known and doesn't hold a candle to this new one, I still think it's interesting to look at this and Shrek 2's predecessor. Shrek was a groundbreaking film best known for its parodying of classic fairy tale stories while telling a new one that's better than them all. Puss in Boots 2011 is a mid-story about an egg that lied about falling off a wall, traveling with a couple of bounty hunters to find something that poops a bunch of golden non-sentient eggs. It's weird and not in the most fun way, which is why it's mid. Nowhere near as witty, definitely not as Easter egg heavy, and obviously not as passionately made. Looking at Shrek right now, I gotta say it aged like fine wine. I'm talking Boondocks type aging. And the second one only aged better. Here's to hoping Puss in Boots 2 ages just as well. Also, looking at the first Shrek, I think the relationship of Puss and Kitty took some pointers from this movie. Also, the three bears were missing the father and a possible sister in the first Shrek, but in this latest movie, both the father and Goldilocks are around, so I'm just gonna assume the father never died and was either taking care of Goldie or fighting the battle that got his eye like it is. The first Puss in Boots movie was a strange idea conceptually, and if it wasn't for the second one being so good, I'd still think that about the whole spin-off thing for Puss or really any of the characters in the Shrek franchise. For a movie like Shrek, it's weird to have a singular character get their own spin-off in what feels like a whole separate world almost. I mean, not only is Puss a pretty unrelated side character, but he's one that didn't appear until the second installment. Not to mention he was really only important in that movie. Everything else Shrek related afterward, he was just kind of tagging along, and hell, that's kind of what he did for the first movie he was in as well. And sure, he was charming and funny and all that, but normally that wouldn't be enough to get anyone their own spin-off. I mean, whether you want to admit he wasn't important or not, dude didn't even appear until like a third through the movie. I guess what I'm trying to say is, besides why the idea of him getting a spin-off wouldn't work, is that it is extraordinary that he got a sequel, much less a good one. Nay, great one. But enough about nonsensical spin-offs. How's its much better sequel actually? This movie is absolutely spectacular. From the characters to the themes, this movie feels like it took the Shrek world, made it more serious, and yet made it work more than Shrek Forever After. In fact, the only thing I'd say is lacking compared to the rest of the Shrek franchise is the comedy. And though that might be subjective and my thoughts on it being the reason I call it more serious, I just don't think anime eyes compare to the delivery of
Mother! Mary, a talking horse!
But, as everyone on this platform has said 1,000 times, and I just mentioned, comedy is subjective and not really important to this mini review. The movie starts off with a party and an admittedly catchy song. The party woke up a giant that rested nearby, leading to the second action scene of the movie. Like I said, the music is catchy, though it's weird to have a movie start off with a song as if it's gonna be a musical when it's not. For a moment I thought the movie was gonna be a musical because of that first song, though it's the only lyrical one they used throughout the movie. Its primary objective is to serve as both a fun introduction to the themes and internal conflicts of the movie, and to be the cherry on top of some scenes as it's played to remind you just how much Puss is feeling himself. The OST overall is fantastic though. The first fight with the owner of wherever the heck they are isn't that important, but the second death ends with the 8th death del gato, a few hidden details in this fight, and hopefully I'll be able to find them all someday. But until then, we have a review of all of Puss's deaths, and one was changed from the trailers? I'm sure it was a good reason for it, but I wouldn't know it. Right after Puss is told to quit adventuring, he's given a good reason to after his encounter with Death, or just Bounty Hunter for now. That fight was clean as hell, but there's no time for that because Puss is led to stay in an old lady's house where he's followed by un perro called Perito for most of the movie. After a little montage, Puss is attacked yet again, this time by the three bears, and I gotta pause for a moment to say, this first act goes by really fast, like it goes by mad fast. I just felt the need to say that. One action scene after another with the only thing to slow it down being Puss's own tempo, which saying out loud I guess makes sense since you know, he's the main character. The first time I watched this, it almost felt like an Illumination movie with how much action was going on every scene. Though I did feel even then that they didn't go Illumination heavy with the chaos. The story continues with everyone trying to rob Big Jack Horner for the map to the wishing star that he literally just got. Jack is probably the most fun character in this movie. It's fun to have a fun villain simply embrace their human nature of being an evil prick. Puss ends up with the map's soft paws and keeps Perito as they journey to the mysterious dark forest. Here's when the movie finally slows down for some character moments and interactions with the main trio. We hear Perito tell his backstory and are kept in the dark about Kitty's wish as we take a stroll through the pocket full of posies. A moment with the characters in a relaxing situation. Finally. I suppose I can also take a moment to finally mention how good the script and how great the voice acting is. I honestly don't think there's a standout actor in the whole movie. Everyone plays their part equally well. But it's not like voice acting hasn't ever not been great in a Shrek movie. Another action scene and Goldie and the three bears being pushed aside for later. Later, we see the trio riding a strip of bark getting an intimate moment between Soft Paws and Puss before Perito gives into his instincts and chases a thrown stick. Another action scene passes, ending with Puss being scared into an actual dark forest. By the way, these action scenes from the robbing to the cave of the lost souls all end with Death appearing to scare the frijoles out of Puss. Puss comes back to his senses after Perito comforts him, showcasing how good El Perro would actually be at his dream job. For a while, we actually get one great character moment after another. Goldie and the three bears get a moment, the main trio gets more moments, and even Jack Horner gets a moment for the movie to confirm the fact that he's pure evil. So from here on, I'm gonna zoom through the rest of the movie. The main trio get the map back from the bear family, but they kidnap El Perro, so Soft Paws puts her trust in Puss for the first time in a long time, leaving him with the map to go get Perito back. She succeeds while Puss fails to face Death yet again, leading to more great script writing as drama between Kitty and Puss comes back to the forefront, before everyone else looking to get a wish shows up for the almost climax. Jack is put in his bag for a moment while Goldie makes the right choice that she totally knew she wanted to make the whole movie. While the other two parties are distracted, Puss has his final epic showdown with Death before his internal conflict is solved from remembering the events of the movie. In the end, everyone gets their wish except Puss, who gets a valuable lesson, and Jack, who gets Death for being himself. Honestly, if I saw this movie as a kid, I think it would have been my most favorite movie ever. The colors, the story, the themes, the choreography, the script, everything about this movie screams awesome. I listened to the soundtrack as well, and while it's nothing overtly outstanding, it's still a pretty good listen that only boosts every scene to another level. That music in the fight with Death especially made it that much more intense and incredible. Now, saying all this, would I consider it to be better than Shrek 2? I'm still not sure. I'm not gonna go over Shrek 2 because I would expect that everyone watching this video has seen it over 50 times by now. I mean, my target audience would have grown up with it, I hope. Shrek 2 is a cult classic along with its predecessor. Of all the fairy tale stories out there, I think these three stand at the top. The Shrek movies are more subtle about the fact that they still consider themselves fairy tales, but I still consider them as such. Especially the spin-off of them will outright tell you it's one, though admittedly none of them feel like fairy tales so much as being a really good parody, or just a parody for those cultured enough. Alright, enough stalling. I'm gonna split points up into categories and we'll see who has more by the end. Shrek 2 has lasted all these years as an amazing movie and perfect sequel, and although Puss 2 just came out, I see it lasting a long time as well, even in this short attention span to culture. Death is as iconic as he can be, and since it's not only a spin-off of one of the biggest franchises in pop culture, but a sequel that tops the first movie in every way, I do believe only more people will go to enjoy this movie and find that they regret not seeing it sooner. Though in saying that, I still think Shrek 2 will stand right beside it the whole time, so I think I'll have to give the longevity point to Shrek 2. Impact is Shrek 2, no question. Honestly, if Puss 2 was the first movie to come up with that art style, I'd probably think different, but as of right now, the only thing going for it in terms of impact is the fact that it's a platinum movie among Fool's Gold dog water like Avatar 2 or Winnie the Pooh horror flick, aka modern cinema. Characters in both movies are great, but I think Puss 2 is gonna take its first point here. Don't get me wrong, the character development of Shrek is perfect and Fairy Godmother is a delightfully evil bitch. But in regard to how evil they are, I feel like Jack Horner is a much bigger threat than her. I mean, there's a reason I just called her a bitch. I feel like the whole cast in Puss 2, or at least most of them, gets their time to be fleshed out, while in Shrek 2 you'll only find Shrek, King Harold, and kind of Puss and Donkey get character developments. Fiona, Prince Charming, Fairy Godmother, and the rest are pretty static, which there's nothing wrong with, but with Fiona as a main character in the movie before this, and Dragon being nowhere to be found until after the movie, I kind of wish we got more out of the side characters. Like, I wonder what Dragon turned into when Donkey drank the potion. Did she turn into a different species of dragon, stay the same, or did this Elizabeth character change instead? I guess we'll never know. Next is the finale Shrek 2. Do I even need to explain this one? I know it's kind of unfair to bring up a finale with Shrek 2 around, but I just couldn't help myself. It's just one of, if not the best climax in cinema, and you just can't bring up Shrek 2 without bringing up the final act. Puss 2 has a wonderful final act as well, with every character getting a realization that their wish was right in front of them the whole time, but it still doesn't hold a candle to the pure hype that is.
No, you great stupid pastry!
Another point for Shrek 2. A few years from now, when you hear the word antagonist, which do you think will likely come to mind first? A racist, child-spoiling broad, or death itself? I don't know about you, but it'll definitely be death for me. Hell, I'll probably still be whistling its tune in the dark by the time I get asked that question. Such a memorable character, and it's so refreshing to see Death portrayed in a serious light, when everything I've seen portrays him in a nonchalant one, except Overwatch, I guess. Puss 2 has this one, and now it's 3-2. The better sequel is a tough question to answer because while Shrek 2 is a perfect sequel, so is Puss 2, and it's a lot easier for it to be because of the first one being nowhere near the second one. I'll give it to Shrek 2. It does everything a sequel should do and then some, while Puss 2 honestly feels like its own movie, separated in almost every way from the first one, with the exception of Kitty and some moments with her that call back to the first one. Also, Cat. And so that's it. With a total score of 4-2, Shrek 2 wins. Look, there are a few more things that Puss 2 does better than Shrek 2 at in my opinion, but for every one thing Puss 2 does better, there's two more things that Shrek 2 does better. A story told by the score. Shrek 2 is and will always be a cult classic, but don't let that determine whether you should see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, because that movie can still be called perfect in its own right. Honestly, I'll be watching both these movies in tandem with each other from now on, because they're both favorites of some sort in my book. Plus, if I had to choose as of writing this, I'd rather see Puss 2 again. More eye candy. Go watch this new Puss in Boots movie and see why. You won't regret it, and you'll keep being surprised on what lies within this mythical world of Shrek. Adios, mi compadres, y recuerda siempre permanecer ambicioso.